Okay.
Welcome to the Swipe Right for Sobriety podcast. My name's Arielle Dyment. I'm from My Sober Compass, and I am so glad that you're here right now. My job is to help share tips and strategies to help you stop binging and start loving life from the inside out. And I'm on here right now with my co-host, Kristin Zeitler. Hey, Kristin, how's it going?
Hey, Arielle, it's good. How are you? This is our first podcast.
I know. I can't even believe we're here right now. I'm really excited about this episode. We're going to have so much fun today.
I know. Me too. It's awesome. And the name is fantastic.
Oh, it had to have something with swiping right. It just had to. So
I know.
I'm really glad that this all came together the way that it did.
I know. Me too. I think it's going to be really enjoyable for all our viewers.
I know it will be. So you guys might be wondering who the heck we are, why we're even on here, and you're wondering where our little boxes are coming in from if you're watching this on YouTube. So I'll kick this off. My name's Arielle Dyment. I am zooming in from Cranbrook, British Columbia. I am originally from Washington, D.C. That's where Kristin and I met 8 years ago now. We were just talking about this. So Kristin, why don't you tell them a little bit about you?
Yeah, so like Arielle said, we met at an event planning firm. So it's crazy to think back to that time in our lives because we were like working really hard. We worked for a really it was a boutique event firm that did nonprofit events, like corporate events, these big events in Washington, D.C. And so that's where Arielle and I met. And I think we like learned a lot in that experience because there's so much that goes into event planning, just like being on site, doing all the physical labor, like making sure everything's going right and on time. And the stress of that is kind of overwhelming. And then we got to go through that together. So we built this pretty strong relationship because we went through all these really unique experiences. And we're actually going to talk about one event that we had that like really is the catalyst for this first episode because it just illuminates this point so well, why we made this podcast and Swipe Right for Sobriety and like the importance of it. But yeah, so that was the event planning job. That's where I met Arielle. And then I hopped into startup world, which is a crazy, crazy world. It never stops. You're always working very hard, but the rewards at the end of the day, I guess, are worth it.
I was super fast with the startup. Into it. You like dove into it. And you were like swimming in that pool for a really long time.
Yeah, for a long, long time, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So, that was a long time ago, but here we are now.
So I started My Sober Compass 3 years ago. I made I'll do another episode about my story in specifics, but long story short, Kristin and I met in 2012. I was a raging drunk alcoholic at that time, and I didn't even know it. I was hiding my drinking from everyone around me, except when we would go out, then I would really put the pressure on for other people to drink as much as I did. Kristin, unfortunately, was right in the path of that. Every time we'd go out, do you remember that? I'd be like, Kristin, drink more.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really understand why I was doing that. So I kept drinking, I kept going. And then in 2015, I hit my rock bottom, ended up going to rehab, rebuilding my life one block at a time, moving to Canada because that's where the treatment center I went to was. And things were really hard for me. That is why I started My Sober Compass. I started this business because I wanted to help people navigate those early days in recovery because I found them personally to be really difficult and really hard. And I'm really grateful that I've had Kristin as such a close friend of mine for all these years. She supported me. She supported me when I was in the depths of my addiction, when I was drinking every day. You probably didn't even realize to the extent. And I'll let you share about that in a minute. But yeah, and here we are today working on My Sober Compass together. Kristin is the COO, I'm the CEO, and we just want to tell you guys, we really care. And our goal with this company is to help as many people as possible see the good in recovery and really see the benefit of what happens when we get sober and we start to change our lives. Because I can tell you straight up today, if I didn't make that decision to get sober, I wouldn't be sitting here. And that is it's hard for me to admit that, but I need to just be really honest with you guys in this podcast. That is the goal, to just be as honest as possible and to also give you this information in a really digestible way. We don't need to search through textbooks or like scour articles or whatever. I just want to tell you guys like it is, straight up. That's the goal.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I think the power in this podcast and sharing what you experienced, what I experienced, watching you experience, is that life is really hard these days and that drinking seems so normal. And you were going through a world of hurt, and I didn't even realize the depths of it because it just seemed so normal. It was like, okay, Arielle, like come hang out. And you're like, yeah, I'm coming. And then I was like, oh, there goes Arielle again, like she's hammer bombed, like good luck. And, and then it was kind of like, whoa, we all need to take like a step back and actually think about what is happening in our lives. Like, why are we doing the things that we're doing and why do we accept it as normal? And Arielle's experience painted such an interesting picture for me because I was like, holy cow, like how can someone so close to me be feeling so much pain, and how can she get better? And you went to rehab and you came out of it and you created this whole program. And I'm like, okay, how did we get to where we were, where that was the situation for Arielle? And for me, that is like my driving force behind partnering up with you with my Sober Compass, because I don't want one more person our age or in our situations to feel like that's normal life, because it's not, that's not the decisions you have to make. And like, you don't have to live that way. But we just feel like we have to. Like, it's almost like you're not going to happy hour at work. Like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, well, I don't have to drink with you. Like, why is this a thing? But it's such a thing, it's like, I can't even, like when we were 25, we couldn't even imagine what life would be like if we weren't heading to a bar. Like, how would we celebrate our birthdays? Like it just didn't, it just wouldn't, I don't know. It's just like such a interesting thing to really dive into. And I think that's really where we want to take this episode, is for you guys to realize that drinking it's just been ingrained into our brains that it's normal. It's like a societal norm. And we do it in every activity. It's like a way to relax. It's a way to have fun. And we want to talk to you guys today about that, because it's just really not the case. Like, you don't have to live that way. And I love this because the way that Arielle and I met was we were doing events. And these events would serve a ton of alcohol to the attendees of these events. And we did one event together. It was an inaugural ball. And there, like at the time, there's not just one inaugural ball when a president gets elected. It's like there's multiple events going on in the city. And so we were doing one specific one. And Arielle and I, it was a 1,500 person event. And before dinner, before everyone went into this like grand ballroom and sat down, they had a whiskey tasting, where it was like they would go to each station during like the like appetizer hour and like get like full glasses of whiskey and then mark on their sheet whether or not they liked it. They're like, that's good, and then they would go to the next station. And I will, like, this is such a vivid memory for me because I think it left such like a lasting impression on me. Like, what is wrong with the world? Like, what is going on here? Because you guys, this is like a formal, beautiful event, like celebrating an inauguration. And there were grown women in ball gowns underneath their tables at dinner, just sprawled out, hammered, being like, and we're like sitting there like, oh my gosh, like, you deal with that. It's like, who takes care of this now? And I was like, oh my gosh, being an event planner is like modern. It's like babysitting adults. And I was like, how strange that 90% of this room is just hammered, and I'm like, I get it. Like, people are going out, they want to relax, but how did they get to that level? And so I think it's just so fascinating to take a step back and like look at that story and be like, okay, how did we get here?
It's so funny because I remember that event super well. Like I was wearing a gold dress from Rent the Runway. I felt like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. I didn't drink at this event because I was paranoid that people would pick up on it.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a lady in the bathroom who lost her dress. Do you remember that?
She lost her dress?
She was bum naked in the bathroom and she's screaming, "Where's my dress?"
See? This is what I'm talking about. Like, crazy.
I looked around, I'm like, is this real life? Is this happening? Like, this is a prestigious inaugural event. And here we are. And, I felt for that woman because I've been that woman. Like, I've been the drunk girl at the party so many times. And it just really, it made an impression on me too, because to see just this socially acceptable big event happen where everyone is hammered and just doing their own thing, puking under tables, passing out under tables, whatever. And then they just get up and pretend like nothing happened. It was so interesting to watch. And I think that society pressures us so much to drink. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember seeing a sober person leave that place.
No. And we gave them goodie bags with alcohol in it.
That's like, there were right, like
hot glasses and like little like airplane bottles, and we're like, have a great night. And I'm like, they're just gonna like shoot it in the car, I'm like, what is this? Like,
this is what society tells us is normal now. And it's not just there was all age ranges at this specific event, but there was also big names in here. We were talking like Supreme Court justices and celebrities. There was remember that big celebrity? I don't want to share because then it will give it away, but there was a celebrity in there and she wasn't visibly drunk, but it was really a bizarre evening. And Kristin, it's so cool to hear you say though, that was such a wake-up call for you, because to me, it really, it was a little bit of a wake-up call, but I could really relate to the people in that room getting drunk because that was something that I was doing in secret all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge wake-up call because, for me, like my realm of understanding was my friend group, and like we were 25 at the time, like that's just what I thought. But then when I actually saw like older, distinguished people getting hammered and like uncontrollable, I was like, whoa, okay. Like maybe there is something like not okay happening here that like we're just not talking about. And then we just send them on their way. And also like I was super worried about letting them just go home. It was like, we can't just let them go. But it was like, not our problem. I'm like, so it really started my brain thinking like, why is this happening? Like, how did we get to this place? So it is interesting when you start digging in to why our society is so enamored with drinking.
It's almost this, well, it's an expectation. When you go to anywhere now, it's like, hey, would you like a drink? Hey, would you like our wine list? Hey, do you want to know what beers we have on tap? And I feel like this is the start of a real conversation, because we need to have something to say back if we're not ready to start drinking, if we've made the decision we're not going to drink, because society has built this idea that drinking is the most socially acceptable behavior that we can do. So we need to start to challenge that, because what's happening is people are in really high amounts of pain. And they're drinking to either numb their pain, to self-medicate. And I'm not talking to the normal drinkers. I know there are normal drinkers out there. I'm just not one of them. I'm talking to the people who are struggling, who have problem drinking tendencies, whether you want to say it's binge drinking, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's, you're drinking more than you want to, and you're just having a hard time finding that off switch. It doesn't matter, but there are some things that we can do. And I just love to have this conversation because I personally feel like this is shifting even in the last 8 years, but I also wonder if it's because now I live in recovery world. So Kristin, have you seen a shift? Like,
and you?
Well, you could, start with me.
You've like seen a shift. 100%.
I mean, in society, have you seen a shift?
Oh, I mean, like, the shift is trending downwards. I feel like watching you, I've had really close friends suffer horribly from alcoholism, like to the point where the livers were failing. And it makes me want to take a step back and like kind of like shake all of us. Like, you guys, like, alcohol is not so fun. Like, it's actually killing us. Like, why can't we just acknowledge that and like find a new way to socialize and have fun? And I feel like it's not getting better, it's just getting worse. Like, there's so much more stress in the world now. There's so much confusion. Like, we're just all looking for answers and we're turning to alcohol because it's easier. So it's like, instead of actually finding like a healthy way to deal, you just pull out that bottle, or you open up a bottle of wine with your girlfriends and like you go to happy hour and throw some back and you're good. You don't have to think about it. And it's like, that solution's not sustainable at all. And it's like super unhealthy for you. And like, people don't even talk about how bad alcohol actually is. And so I'm like,
people don't want to know.
Yeah, they don't want to know. And like, Arielle and I were having this conversation the other day about how much the alcohol industry spends on marketing to get us to go to the store and buy their product. And like, they're ruthless. They stop at nothing. It's like even subliminal messaging, you know, it's like, this beer you should drink on your beach vacation because it's going to make you have a better time. You're truly going to relax. And you're like, you associate like a Corona with like a beach chair, right? It's just like, how are these associations made? And it's like, it's really sad because I think it's everywhere. It's like, watch a football game, Budweiser everywhere. Like, go to a tailgate, drinking everywhere, you know, like, it's just synonymous with events. Like, that's just how they've built it into our brains. And it's really sad because it's like, well, if you wanted to stop, if you have a really bad problem, you know how hard it is to stop when it's literally everywhere? So that's why we're having this conversation today, because it's like, hey guys, it's actually not normal. And these are all just constructs that are making us pull out our wallet and give it to the big guys that want us to just keep drinking. They don't care. They don't care if you die. You know, they care about their bottom line. And that's the reality. And we all need to start thinking that way about like, okay, why am I doing this? Like, why is this in my brain right now? Why am I like having a natural reaction to pick up a drink because I'm at XYZ event?
Yeah. Is it because I want to have this drink, or is it because I need to have this drink? That's a very different conversation in itself. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, a lot of times drinking starts out as this very innocent thing. And then it either skyrockets over time or people walk away from it. I've seen so many of my friends walk away from it after we graduated university. You know, that's where I started to drink. And I thought the same thing was going to happen for me. I thought, oh, well, you know, I'll stop doing this partying when I leave school. And I did not. The first week I got out of university, I went to Georgetown with some friends because we were all home. We all just graduated, whatever. And I went missing for like 12 hours. And my friends were like, Arielle, you've become a liability. We don't want to hang out with you until you get your shit figured out. And yeah. I took that. So I was heartbroken because I honestly, I couldn't really see that I had a problem yet, even though to some of my friends I did. But I just thought, oh, well, you know, I'll do better. I'll get this sorted. And here I was in the depths of an addiction. I didn't even know it. Right. So that's what I want to open up these dialogues, and I really want to have these real conversations in a digestible way. So you guys can, if you're out there and you're feeling like, wow, this is getting to be something different than I thought it was, you can listen to us and hopefully get some inspiration or some hope or some ideas around what you can do about it. Because I cannot, when I think back, I cannot believe that I was years and years in this cycle without knowing it.
Yeah, I know. And I think the perspectives that we both can provide will really help you guys understand not just yourself, but like the group that you're in. Like for me, if I could have helped Arielle identify earlier that like there was a serious problem, you know, maybe you wouldn't have had to suffer for so long. But it's like, we just come to accept that our drunk friend is being silly and we're going to let them go and like do whatever, you know, and it's like, that's acceptable. But like, why is that okay? And like, why aren't we thinking differently about this? And I think sharing our experiences with you guys will really help you just like tune in and just to start shifting your perspective just a little bit. And it's just building those building blocks, you know, to help you really understand and become more knowledgeable into what problems are actually out there. Because you guys, I'll tell you the other side of this, if you keep living a life where you're drinking all the time, you're getting hammered every weekend, it gets really sad the more you do it. And it gets to the point where it's not even fun anymore. And you're like, well, I blacked out again last night. And then you're like, oh, now my friends are having serious complications with their liver and they're in the hospital. And it's like, there's a timeline for like, you can't keep doing it. It's just, you can't, you won't survive that way. And so it's like really becoming like waking up to this and realizing that you can stop and it doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can. But I mean, and this is the thing, I avoided Google searching how to get sober. I avoided talking to people about it like in a truthful way because I was really terrified about what that would actually do. Like, because there was a reason why I drank, right? It would numb my emotions. And I was a steel trap. I don't know. I felt really cold on the inside. And I never even asked you this, Kristin, but did you feel like I talked about my feelings with you when we were back in the day?
I feel like you were super closed off. And it was like really like you were empathetic, but like getting into your psyche or like what was going on deep down, like it never came out.
That's so interesting because, you know, and I will also do an episode on when I went to treatment, but that was the feedback I got the first week was that I was snobby, I was closed off, I was not feeling anything. And when someone called me snobby, I was like legitimately hurt. I was upset because I really didn't feel like I was snobby. But what was happening was it was this wall that I had built around me. And I was sitting in a room of people that were like, oh, today I'm feeling really vulnerable and open. And I had never had that conversation. Like, yeah, I don't want to talk about how I feel because I felt like if those floodgates opened, I didn't know what to expect on what was going to come out because I had hidden all of how I felt for so long. So it's like thawing my ice cold heart.
Yeah. And like, think about it. Like if we hadn't spent our free time going out at night, we probably would have had a better channel of communication, like a different environment to actually like connect deeper. But like we didn't because we were in a loud bar with thumping music and like, you know, we wanted to make sure we looked good and like it was fun to a degree, but like we were missing the whole point. Like there was no like deep human connection or like helping you helping you resolve whatever issues you had, you know, like it was just like we were having fun at the time, but like there was no deep meaning to that. So it's like, why do we feel so depressed when we wake up? Or like, why do we feel like so empty during the week? And it's like, well, I don't know, maybe because we're not truly connecting. We're just like flailing around and we're like, woo, you know, like that guy's cute. Like, I'm gonna go make out with him. You know, it's like, yeah, what is that? You know, like, once again, like, what is this? Like, you guys, everyone needs to take a step back and be like, what is actually happening here?
It's so, I just got it. I'm going to out this. Like, even in university, we had this running joke about BOMO pose, which was like blackout, make out, pass out, you know, and we just thought it was hilarious and we were just living the life. But the reality was every time I'd wake up, I'd be like, why did I do that? That was so dumb, you know, like what was the point? And that was my version of how to connect with people. Joke around, make light of life, get drunk, do whatever, black out, make bad decisions. And then the next day I'd just be sitting in a world of pain. So what would I do? I'd start drinking again in secret because I didn't want people to judge me on picking up that hair of the dog drink, right?
Yeah.
Or we go to brunch, bottomless mimosas. I mean, that was the worst.
Yeah.
You
Like, who
remember we
thought
went
of
to
that
that
idea?
drag bar in DC for bottomless mimosas?
Yeah. No, it's like, guys, like, who thought of this? Spend all night drinking, wake up, don't even give your body any time to recover, and like hop right back into mimosas.
Honestly,
like,
I'm sweating right now thinking about it.
it's gross. And by the way, it's like expensive too. Like, this is not a cheap thing that, you know, it's not a good idea all around.
No. When I look back on how much I was spending on alcohol, it was at least $300 a week. Multiply that by 4, that's $1,200 a month. By 12, I mean, we're getting in the tens of thousands of dollars every single year. It's not for what, right? For this social lubricant to make me numb my emotions, whatever it wasn't worth that when I look back. I mean, I can't change the past. You and I, we know this. We can't change the past, but what we can do now is just open this dialogue, because Kristin and I, we're not going to hold back on here. We are going to be as real as possible with you. Personally, I feel like it is time for a modern approach to recovery. And that is why we built the programs that we have, and why we are doing this podcast, and why we care so much. Essentially, I wouldn't be here today if I never found my recovery. I wouldn't.
No. And I think, Arielle, if you hadn't gone through what you had gone through, and you hadn't suffered the way you had, and you hadn't come out so strong on the other side, I don't know if I would even have the depth of, like, I would not have the depth of understanding that I do now about like what recovery is, and like what people need in recovery, like how to talk to people in recovery, and how to like actually build meaningful relationships. And like the things that you share with me are applicable to anyone who's not even like an alcoholic. You know, it's like, that's actually a really good way to live. And so I'm like thinking about it from my perspective, and I'm like, how many people just have no idea that there is another life out there that you can live that is happy and healthy, and you can still have fun and have deep, meaningful relationships. And I'm like, I don't think I would have been exposed to that if Arielle hadn't gone through this. And so now it's like, I just feel like it's like such like an empowering mission to get this word out there and let people know that they don't have to suffer and kill themselves from alcohol. Like, they can really turn it around. So, I mean, it's been such a blessing in disguise that happened to you. And my Sober Compass is helping so many people right now. And it's just a really beautiful thing to see.
Oh, thanks, Kristin. Well, I mean, the question that comes up that I want to ask the listener right now is, do you feel congruent when you drink alcohol? So do you feel like your insides are matching your outsides? I know for me, I would slap on a bunch of makeup, I'd rent the runway, I'd do my hair, I'd go to blow dry bars, get my hair did, and I'd walk out for the weekend, and I just felt on top of the world. But the reality was, I didn't feel like I was on top of the world. I needed to survive with drinking. And when I was alone in my apartment by myself getting drunk, I would cry. I was so lonely, and I was so disconnected from not only my friends like Kristin. We were connected, but we weren't connected in the way that I could call her up and be like, hey, I'm getting drunk right now by myself, and I don't know, I'm crying about XYZ. I never did that because I was so ashamed, and so I just felt really like I was living a double life.
Yeah. That must have been so hard. Like, that's not a good, like, that's so hard to go through.
It was confusing because I would take selfies and be like, yeah, I look great today, whatever. But I didn't feel great, and I didn't feel in alignment with who I was. And I think that piece of not being in alignment with my goals and what I really truly cared about was really hard. And it took me a long time to admit that. So I'd love for you right now, if you're listening to this, ask yourself, am I in alignment with what I want to be? Or am I numbing and using alcohol in a way that is not helpful to me? I'm not saying that you got to go out there and make the decision to like give it up forever or say goodbye and dump your booze right now, but start to think about this. Is this working for you? And if it's not, that's okay. I want you to be able to listen to this podcast without guilt, without shame, without judgment on yourself, and just listen and take it in and reflect, and don't beat yourself up, because I personally know that we can beat ourselves up better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Even in that moment where my friend was like, why did you go missing for 12 hours? You better believe I sat on that for a week straight. I couldn't look at myself in the eye. I thought, you know, my friends don't deserve me in their life. And
Yeah.
it's that shame.
Yeah. No, that's such a strong question to ask yourself. I mean, it's like you have to ask yourself this question. Like, it's hard, and it might not, you might even be like, no, I'm fine. Everything's good. And then you might reflect on this in like a week and be like, maybe I'm not, you know, like, so it's a process, guys. It's not like you just turn it on and off all of a sudden. You're like, yeah, okay, like I align to this. Like, really, like, start questioning things that you're doing. Like, what are you doing this weekend? What are you doing the next weekend? Like, look at your calendar. What have you already mapped out for yourself? Like, what does that look like? And then maybe start doing that inner work of like, okay, maybe this isn't exactly what I should be doing, right? Like,
yeah,
it's a process.
Back in the day, I would plan everything. I'd plan, you know, football nights. I'd plan happy hours for my company. I'd plan Tinder dates out. I'd plan meeting up with my friends. There you go. 7 days a week, I was drinking. And I felt like just because I had hooked a social event to it, it was acceptable. Now, if I was drinking 7 days a week by myself, oh yeah, then I'd have a problem.
Right. Exactly.
So it's the lies that we tell ourselves. So the opposite of lying to ourselves is to get honest and get real. So take the emotion out of it and look at the facts. The facts could be, how many drinks are you having a week? How many days a week are you drinking? Do you have rules around your drinking? These are just some questions that I want to introduce. And as we go through this podcast, we're going to have so many different speakers on here, different episodes. We will continue to give you guys some more questions and some more ideas to think about, because I know Kristin's on board with this. We personally do not want to see people suffer anymore. It is unnecessary. There is a solution. There's many solutions, I should say, out there. And we are never going to be the type to tell you how to do it exactly, like by just saying, yep, you got to go to AA. And if you don't do that, then you're doomed to go to you're doomed in the recovery world. No, our goal is to give you all of the options, all of the strategies, so that you can make the best program for you, because we're all so different and we all have unique strengths within us that we can leverage. Anyway, yeah. I'm just getting really excited.
No, I completely agree. And I think what's so cool about this program is that, like, Arielle and I are like, I guess the term like city slickers, like, we're pretty cool. Like, like, we just like identify with this like group of like young professionals, like climbing the ladder and like, you know, doing what it takes, looking good, getting your hair done. And it's like, our world is that, and like the people in our world behave a certain way, and like it's scary to step outside of that. And so I think this program is so great and helpful, because it gives people that are in this world who don't know what to do because everyone else is doing it a chance to change, and to do it in a way that like is still okay, and you'll still fit in, and like you'll still be like able to go to work, have friends, but like you're going to do it in a responsible, like, I'm thinking differently about this way that keeps you healthy and happy. So it's like, this resource, you can't just Google it and find it, right? Like, this is our situation right now. It's what we're currently living through. Like, there's no other program that's as unique as this, because it just speaks to what we have to go through, our lives, how they're unique and different, you know, than other generations. And like, we're going to figure this out, and it's going to be okay.
Absolutely. It is going to be okay. I just want everyone to leave this episode just knowing that whatever stage you're at, it is okay. All we need to do is take one small step if you're ready, right? So even listening to this podcast is a small step in the right direction. And I'm, again, want to reiterate this. You don't got to make any huge life-changing decisions today, but just know that the seed has been planted. We don't know what seed you've planted, whether it's like a Christmas tree seed or I don't know, whatever, like rose, whatever. But The seed has been planted. So at the end of the day, it comes down to one decision. Swipe left for being drunk or swipe right for sobriety. So Kristin, what are we going to do?
We're going to swipe right for sobriety.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode. Have a really good day. Bye.